Yeah, fuck you, Will.
Billy Bob.
That was absolutely fucking fantastic. Please make
Still
him go
getting
away.
the audio through.
Yeah, make him go away.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we get. We've had 4+ decades of letting politicians say whatever the fuck they want and not holding them accountable. So, par for the course.
We'll get through it somehow.
That was
right, kids. It's been fun. Wasn't that entertaining? Doesn't that just put you in a fucking fabulous mood? I mean, I'm feeling good.
I mean, he's just lies.
Extra sexy. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck you guys. I gotta put on my blue blockers now.
Yeah, you got
My
that.
my eyes are fucking burning.
It's
Daddy's
just
going to
Things
tell
are
us
going
something
well.
important instead of just campaigning for free.
Oh,
Us,
it's all important on a
forced
certain
campaigning.
level. Well, look, you've got to pay for the campaign, right?
It's just like the forced
democracy's
porn
at
I have to
stake.
watch on Twitter. It's the same shit.
Right. You got to do what you got to do.
They have porn on Twitter?
I definitely wrote
Welcome
some
to the
shit
real
down.
world, then.
Definitely wrote some shit down. So.
Yeah.
All right, so it's 8:36. So
Yeah, I think we better get after it. We better just get after it.
we're gonna go hit it here.
Yeah.
So.
Let's do that. Let's hit it. Let's hit it hard.
And what would his people back home want if they ever learned just how far from them he'd really gone? He broke from them, and then he broke from himself. I'd never seen a man so broken up, ripped apart. I've seen the horror. But you have no right to call me a murderer. You have a right to kill me. I have a right to do that, but you have no right to judge me.
You got somebody on the organ now? Hey man, you're gonna pay for dinner. You're gonna go.
It's impossible through words to describe what is necessary to those who do not know what horror means. Horror.
Well, that was something. I don't know how many of you just hopped on here after watching the State of the Union address from our beloved president here on March 7th, 2024. I think we're really getting there as a country. If nothing else can bring us together, perhaps it's trauma. And, perhaps the repeated traumatization of having to listen to that man bumble through the presidency while he destroys our country. This isn't a partisan attitude towards it either. This is just objectively true. So tonight we're going to go through as much of that garbage speech as we can and fact check it to the best of our abilities, as this is the American Council for Truth in Journalism. And we have to verify things. It's what we do, of course. So that's what we're going to do. Dan, it's late, but it's fine, right? Everything's fine. Your audio is out, so that's fine. That's going well. I can tell we've kept you back in the dungeon for too long.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you doing? Are you awake? You feeling spry after all of that?
The outlook for the future has never been better.
Right.
I mean,
right.
The smoke, the fire, oh God, I feel like I'm in Billy Madison. Like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever fucking had to sit through and listen to.
I don't know if it's getting better or worse each year. What do you think? Is he getting better at his speeches? I mean, look, he went pretty much the full hour. It was pretty late for him too. So
I felt like I only caught like every fourth or fifth word because the rest of it just sounded like marbles in his mouth.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
Maybe we ought to check in with the combat rev and just get the pulse of our spiritual well-being real quick before we start diving deep.
Yeah, guys, I'm out here live outside of Capitol Hill with the motorcade. As you can see, the lights in the background, guys, they are screaming from the river to the sea, something about Joe Biden 4 more years, curing cancer. This was phenomenal. What a wonderful speech by our president, Joseph Biden.
Yeah, but I think you ought to be a little bit more honest that you're not in Capitol Hill. You're actually in that place where they don't give a shit if there's political violence, which is Minneapolis, Minnesota area. So I think, Thor, you're also a correspondent somewhere abouts there. Can you give us an update on your situation, please?
Yeah, well, people love to hear nice words, and his whole speech was 100% bullshit. I think the closest he got to telling the truth was when he said that, what was it? He's going to defend the people who are destroying democracy. I think that's what he said, something along those lines. That was the closest we got to the truth.
I've got an exact quote. We'll definitely have to come back to that. But
this is what we're living
said
with.
That he was going to defend the destruction of democracy or something along those lines.
Yeah, defend the people attacking democracy. That's kind of where we're at. He did cover a lot of nice talking points. Nothing that he said was legitimate or true. He covered Social Security. He covered abortion. Covered all the things people wanted to hear.
But it was inspiring nonetheless.
Yeah, so I think out of the base that he's targeting, I think they'll actually get the reaction they want. Unfortunately, I'm sure there's a bunch of people in Minneapolis who are like clinking wine glasses now.
Yeah, Joey, are you thoroughly inspired at this point?
I'm just disgusted. I'm fucking disgusted. You used all that for a free campaign event, so you forced me to watch your shitty ass campaign, and none of that stuff's gonna happen. And anything that he said is happening is total bullshit. Like, inflation's down? What? Do you fucking live here? Do you live here?
To be fair, to be fair, it was me that actually forced you to watch that. So, Lou, what are we doing?
I don't know. I think the best part was when you coined the term gavel banging. I think that was the most inspiring part of the whole thing.
Yeah, what is gavel banging, as you recall? What is gavel banging? Why don't you elaborate on it?
It's when one of those Congress people get banged inside the Senate. I think that's what we're gonna.
Yeah, so it's the butt fucking in the Congress that henceforth shall be known as gavel banging. But he did start off the speech.
But hold on, real quick. One thing I did notice real quick is when he did say we were going to do World War III, and everybody went, "Yay!"
Well, yeah, I mean, look, we've got to get, everything is fine, as you can see from our surroundings. Things may be on fire, everything's fine. But that's why I thought it was interesting that he brought up very quickly Roosevelt and his address to the nation in January 1941, when our nation was under attack, both at home and overseas. Very unprecedented. As we have to deal with the threat of Putin, we have, Ukraine can stop Putin, he said, as long as we pay for it. Is that where we're at, team?
Yeah.
I
have to pay for it.
Gumbo, you definitely called that, right? You were like, as long as we pay for it, and then sure enough,
that's literally all it's about. Is we're not going to put any of our troops on the ground, but we're going to pay for fucking everything because Ukraine's broke, and pretty much everybody there is dead.
I think some of our backroom commentary too is as they're making their WWE entrances into the Capitol there, right?
Yeah,
we're sitting there. Why are they so happy? Why are they smiling so much? Why are they kissing each other and hugging each other with so much glee? And I think the comment was, because all their Raytheon and Lockheed Martin stocks are about to go through the fucking roof. And sure as shit, within the first 2 minutes, that was called.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got that, and I think that's looking up for all of them in Congress. They're obviously very happy. We see some laugh reacts and other things here. So thanks everybody for joining. Make sure you hit those react buttons. And yeah, I'm going to do that whole stupid thing that I hate doing, where I ask you to like, share, subscribe, and all that garbage. Appreciate everybody tuning in on all the different places that we're going out on. Opslens.com. Love you. I think that's kind of about as much of that as I want to do, especially when Zelensky was talking about the fact, when we talk about this, they've run out of bodies in Ukraine. Like, do people not understand this? 700,000 was the number that Zelensky put out there. So that's fantastic that we want to keep sending weapons, ammunition, and all these supplies to Ukraine. But if we're not putting U.S. troops on the ground, I'm curious exactly who the fuck he thinks is going to go die over there at this point.
Probably the rest of NATO. I
No.
mean, you know,
Maybe
they
you
all
go draft again?
they all seem pretty eager to get into it. I mean, like probably start sending in Poland, you know, and then just
Sweden
one
now.
by one.
Well,
Yeah.
France, Macron said that they were going to send troops, and he said he didn't know when, but they're pushing it.
Well, didn't
So
Sweden say
that's why
prepare for
he
war?
referenced Reagan, right? That's why he referenced Reagan. It is a time for choosing, and right now they're just choosing, you know, which particular nation is going to send all of their young sons to die in trenches.
Like a basketball game.
And it seems like he tipped his hat a bit to that too, because he started referencing NATO and the United States spearheading the effort of putting NATO together. And as we all know, what was it, the Title V or whatever, right? Like as soon as one NATO nation is involved in the conflict, all of NATO gets activated and goes in, right? So, I mean, if they keep encouraging it and push one of these NATO nations to go in there and get fucked up, we all get pulled in.
Yeah, and as he pointed out, NATO was created to prevent war, and over the last few years, we've seen how they do that. You know, whether it was the Nord Stream attack, or the attack on the Crimean Bridge, or the fact that Germany's having these nice super secret conversations that get leaked out. Which, by the way, anybody who thinks that happened by accident, like these guys just had that conversation on a phone and Russia intercepted it, no, it was intentionally intercepted. They're tickling the wire. They want to put that out into the universe. They want people to understand that we're about to go into war there. They want to normalize that and rationalize that in the minds of all the plebes.
Nord Stream.
Yeah.
It was great how Biden took credit for fortifying NATO too. Like that was wild. I think he took credit for the Finland and Sweden joining. Never mind Trump flying out to Europe and telling them that they need to fucking start paying money.
2%, baby.
Yeah.
Well, he took credit for a lot of things.
Yeah, like the inflation going down. They must have fudged those numbers for sure. Have y'all ever looked at those charts? I have them. Like,
and CPI is a hoax because they average out across everything. So they're like super yachts. Everything is in there, and it's like, yeah, when I go to Subway and a sandwich costs $18, that's like 200%, not 18%.
I'm no mathematician, but it says all items 3%, but then nothing else is close to 3.1%. Like, how does that break down like that? I just don't
the way
get
it breaks down, Lou, is fuck
like
you.
none of those are 3%.
Yeah.
I don't think those numbers are
somehow.
real either. Those numbers aren't real.
Motor vehicle insurance. That's
they've increased our chocolate ration by 15%, though, brother. So, you know, everything is fine. If you'd like to support us, you can do so by making a purchase at the link there. I don't want to read all of it. If anybody's listening on the radio, go figure it out. But beyond, you know, the inflation, I'm sure we can rotate back to that if we've got time. But the real threat to democracy that, you know, he kind of strayed a little bit away from, as opposed to previous State of the Unions, but is what he described as the dagger to the throat of American democracy, and that is January 6th. So apparently there's daggers to the throat. I mean, I don't know.
Did you get to hold the dagger, Sean?
Well, I wasn't able to really track a lot of this exactly, but I know that there was a lot of protesting. People were saying something about March the 7th now as they ramp up that kind of insurrection narrative on the right, and people get all excited about that. But they blocked his motorcade. So I don't know what their involvement was to the dagger and the threats to democracy or anything like that. I know they put up barricades today, but that was obviously just to keep all of the white supremacists out, correct?
Oh yeah, this was worse than anything except the Civil War.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was.
Well, they failed. So like he said, democracy prevailed. And then that was when he dropped your quote, and we've got that here. The threat to democracy must be defended. The threat to democracy must be defended. Just want to let you guys know we will be having a t-shirt up on that here very soon.
This is the same guy that said that he spent many years and lots of money building the greatest voter fraud team in the history of the United States, right?
Yeah, his
gotta
Freudian
give it.
flips are golden. Like that dude just tells you what's happening.
It's like he forgets or something. He's like, no, you're
Well,
supposed to say the
because
opposite.
it's probably with the fucking letterhead and that he sends out to the DOJ, you know, where he's giving them their marching orders to the AG, and right at the top it says, "We must defend." Right? Like,
Joey, what was this? You
That's
were looking
literally
at
what they're
something
doing.
earlier. You were
That's what
looking at
they're doing.
something earlier about a list that they're compiling, apparently, on everybody who says they don't like vaccines or whatever. What were you able to find out about that?
No, it's just like if you don't like vaccines, if you're against any type of like immigration law coming out, if you're against firearms stuff, then yeah, they just put you on a watch list. And they just openly said it. So
Does that mean it gets a surveillance?
Of course, that you're going to be a part of the Patriot Act. You know what the Patriot Act calls for. You don't get a jury. You don't get a trial. You go straight to fucking wherever they want to send you. Peace.
Yeah, they said if you buy a Bible or if you shopped at Bass Pro Shops, you get put on the watch list too. So it's a whole lot of people.
Well, luckily for me, I don't have to buy a Bible, and my grandchildren, if I ever get to have them, will read about this day. Unless, of course, we're able to just abort all of the children. He mentioned, the social worker, and in vitro fertilization. You had something to say about that, Thor, that was pretty good.
Yeah, they brought up 2 women. It was kind of strange that he mentioned the IVF thing, saying that they couldn't get it in, I think, Alabama. Most people who get it have to fly to another country or state anyways, because it costs like $30,000 to $50,000. And the reason why some states have decided to make it illegal, and it really is the state's choice in this, and because we haven't gone through the ethics of it. With IVF, what they do is they fertilize a ton of eggs, like 10 to 50 or potentially hundreds of eggs. And then they go through and they do genetic testing and they select the one they like and they put it in the fetus. And some of the states have basically said, we don't understand the ethics of this. We can't approve it. And so we're going to ban it, right? Just because of the slippery slope argument that now you're basically custom tailoring what kind of child you want. Like, do you want them to have blue eyes or, be 8 feet tall or whatever weird nonsense? And they can do that customization when they're doing IVF. And that's why they banned it. And for them to pretend it was like a giant, reproductive rights issue is kind of preposterous. Same thing with the second woman they brought on. She had a child that had a genetic disorder, which can cause the fetus to die. But an exceptionally large number of people, and we don't know the stats on this because they don't report it, their kid has that disorder and they live and everything's perfectly fine. There's tons of stories of people who say they were consulted to abort their fetus. The kid lived, everything was fine. So the 2 people that brought up it was just ridiculous. It's just a shit show. But they're going to get the impact they want. Most people will see that and be like, yeah, Alabama's bad, banning fertilization for women.
Yeah. It was an interesting thing. He talked about the chaos of Roe v. Wade being overturned, and painted this picture like there's going to be incest babies everywhere running around raping and killing Americans.
Yeah, and I'd like to remind everybody that he was a part of that administration that had a super majority, so they definitely could have codified that in the 2011s. But they don't, because they like it as a wedge issue instead.
Yeah, it's a wedge issue.
Really odd that, like, if you can afford $30,000, $40,000, $60,000, $80,000 for a procedure to have this kid, the inconvenience of traveling 200 miles to do it probably isn't that costly.
Right. I have friends who've gone to other countries for it. Exactly. It's like such a fucking non-issue. It's crazy to talk about it.
I mean, are we going to talk about the cost-effective savings of just using a coat hanger or no? Wow,
No.
did that go too far? Did that go too far? Why is it our female council members the only one that laughs? You guys just sit there like, don't do it.
Because it was
I had
funny.
to make sure she laughed. I had to make sure she laughed before I could laugh.
Sean, it's just that we don't use coat hangers anymore. Now we gavel bang.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the other thing that I'd point out about that conversation. When Biden talked about this, it was one of the few times where they showed the Supreme Court justices, and they were like, even the entire panel did not look happy with him. And this is a president who several times has said that he will overstep the authority of the Supreme Court. I mean, it's literally a dictator, right? He recently again said that he doesn't care what they said about his ruling on student loans. He will act unilaterally against the Supreme Court. And when he brought up the Roe v. Wade decision, even the justices who didn't vote for it didn't look happy, because he's literally just making them out to be the enemy wholesale at this point. And I think that's why there was a 9-0 decision for keeping Trump on the ballot. I think he's weaponizing the government against itself too. And I think you should get a clip of their faces because
and when we talk about their faces and whether they were deadpan during all that discussion, I don't think we should gloss over the fact that during the entire, intro WWE thing, you had the Chief Justice John Roberts, and he did that very white person thing, where you look over at a party and you look over at somebody and they go like that. Yeah. So, I mean, they do know how to control their emotions.
That's cost effective.
Yeah, that's cost effective. But do you guys remember the pain and the fear of the pandemic? I mean, he mentioned that as well. Just, how horrible it was. Are you guys doing okay after the scam? Yeah.
We also said the vaccine solved it.
Yeah. The vaccines cured COVID.
Yeah, well, he said the vaccine saved us and will soon defend us from cancer. So that's very exciting. We're going to cure cancer.
And you're not going to get Resident Evil. If you get the shot, you're not getting COVID. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said.
They're going to release tomorrow that they're changing the name of what cancer is.
Yeah.
Redefine it.
Yeah, they're gonna
he had bronchitis and now he's dead.
Yeah, I don't know. I find it interesting too, because like around the time that they started releasing these vaccines, these experimental vaccines, right? We started seeing that not only was there a lot of myocarditis, or oh my god, I can't even say the word right now. But right, you had a lot of health issues going on with everybody. But one of the scariest things is that cancer was fucking exploding at exponential rates. We had something very close in our family that we had a family member that had beaten cancer twice. And COVID scared the shit out of her because she had just finished chemo and she had an immune compromised system. So she's like, yeah, dose me up. And just, I think it was by dose 2, all of a sudden she had stage 4 cancer, 2 of them, blood cancer and colon cancer at the same time. And the treatments would both kill you for being on the treatment of the other one. So she got a death sentence and she ended up passing. And, when you start looking at all the data points over the last year and a half, you see the vaccination rate going up and you see the death rate going up like crazy, matching it. And you're seeing cancer blowing up like crazy with people out of freaking nowhere, right? She had a clean bill of health and then 2 stage 4 cancers out of nowhere, like immediately after getting the shot. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but let's face facts here, Thorpe. I mean, gosh, if we're headed into World War III, don't you think it's fair that the rest of the American people get to experience all of the experimental vaccines the same way as our military has for decades? And it's all been safe all along, right?
Never the military was getting some legit juice. Like they were getting some real juice. The population got some juice that's going to normalize everyone paying tens of thousands of dollars for pharmaceuticals for 50 years. And that's what the point of his speech was. He brought up that they're going to take down senior citizens pharmaceuticals. What they didn't mention is that now 20-year-olds, especially with the transit movement, they're just going to start making sure everyone is kicking in as much money as possible into that industry.
Well, speaking of money, that was the other thing. Our economy is the envy of the world. 15 million jobs in just 3 years. It's amazing. Unemployment at 50-year lows. I mean, how does he do it?
He's God.
He fudges the numbers. He absolutely just makes shit up. They've gone in there and just...
Come on, Lou. You can't deny that there's been 15 million jobs added in 3 years.
I think I can. Didn't they just like reclassify? Like didn't Uber play a part of like the contract?
I'm throwing a softball. Somebody hit it out of the park, please.
Yeah, please, somebody.
Yeah, that was the pandemic. So what happened is it was just the pandemic numbers. He's basically claiming that everyone going back to work from the pandemic is the jobs that they created. That's all it is.
That's
right.
Plus the other
manufacturing capital. Yeah, we're the manufacturing capital of the world, wages going up and inflation coming down, creating American jobs in America where they belong. Consumer confidence is soaring. Federal projects will be made in America for the Ukrainian war, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because all the money that we ship to Ukraine comes back to our contractors. That was how they've said that this helps the economy. It's kind of like, what was the movie Canadian Bacon? It was Canadian Bacon. Yeah.
You got to remember it goes from Ukraine to the DNC, and then from the DNC back into contractors, and then that's how that all works.
Yeah, but it's not just the DNC. McCarthy definitely got his fair share of that cheddar too through all of the crypto shit.
So the DNC.
Let's not. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. The RNC is the defenders of everything American in the Constitution. My bad. You know, we look to our great leaders like Maximus Frontus and Marjorie Traylor Greene. Yeah, sure.
Hold on to your butts.
Trailer trash.
But the best news I heard.
It's the anti-slavery party. Get the name right.
All right. Good news is
like
that the shortage of semiconductors is no concern because we're ramping up production of that as well. I know, Thor, you've been real concerned about semiconductors lately, but that should alleviate any of your fears, correct?
Again, it was another thing that Trump did. They won't credit him on any of it. And they said they were going to build it in 5 years. Now they're saying it's going to be 10 years. They did a victory lap for doing nothing. Right now, it looks like we're not going to have those plants. And they talked about, the HVAC techs getting paid 6 figures to build out these buildings. I mean, we're really borderline Soviet Union type situation where they just built buildings and then never used it because they couldn't run a country. And that's what we're walking into. He talked, like I said earlier, he talked about a lot of good things. It's just that everything he said was a lie.
Well, it's like remove. God bless. It's like removing poisonous lead pipes, right?
Yeah.
He was big about that, because we want to prevent cancer again, but I thought it was cured. I'm not really sure how it's going to work out after they zap everyone with the 5G towers, though. So, is that going to balance out, we think?
You stunned me with that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We're going to evolve super soldiers. Sean, you're just not with the program.
Okay.
The weak are going to die. The strong are going to survive. And, you just have to learn to love it.
So is that how
we're all going to die?
Woke. What is it? Woke Halo teams? What is that about now? That are going to be dropping into Taiwan to save democracy?
Okay. Not sure.
Yeah, so we have First Special Forces Group is going into Taiwan now, right, to train.
Yeah, that's good.
But the subs, though, right? But that's just subs, though. That's just like nuclear subs. That's not a big deal.
No. This is their foreign internal, like their FID and their actual guerrilla warfare tactics instructors are going there, teaching them how to defend Taiwan against China.
Yeah, I mean, it's like advisors. I mean, we've never seen how that can go awry.
It's a big move against China. For us to say that publicly, and now we have troops on the ground there, so that if anything gets hit there, our troops are getting hit, right?
Yeah,
right.
Like Syria and Iraq,
like Ukraine,
the Red
like
Sea.
Gaza. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, right? Like, because we always say it's the red line that you don't cross, and yet it's been crossed about 150 times in the last 2 months, and jack shit's been done about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're past that era, but they're going to keep it as a stick for China. It's a hypothetical stick. I mean, Biden brought that up too. He actually mentioned that. He said that there's Americans being held prisoner in foreign countries. He gets the knife hand for this, by the way. And then he just segued to fucking talking about Israel and Hamas and didn't address the fact that they're not doing anything for Americans being held prisoner. I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? Keep going on that one.
Well, if you want to make
Jack's complete lack of surprise.
Yeah. So it's a future of possibilities, and like he said, the days of trickle down economics are over. So that's very exciting as well in the whole atmosphere. I mean, the last thing we want is any of the wealth trickling down.
No, it's going to stay at the top now.
We got a new idea. It's called fascism. You're gonna love it.
Water tower economics. We got a big pool up top, and we pipe it to you if you shut the fuck up.
No more golden showers.
Sean, can I, before you continue, can I pose a question about the State of the Union to the council?
Here we go. Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Let's get a solo on you, Lou.
Well, he was speaking about juice earlier, and I was just wondering, do y'all think he was on meth that propelled him all the way through, or do you think that was a mask?
I don't know. I think there was something real there going on. Some sort of drug that we don't even know about. Maybe they just shot him up with the cancer vaccine, and it's got some sort of benefit that we're not even aware of.
Hey guys, I'm on it right now.
Yeah.
What is a
silver
silver
showers?
shower?
What is a silver shower?
Is that where Joe Biden pees on you because he's like a silver member? Like,
Jesus.
Oh, well, maybe it's
Nice.
from taking all of the Centrum silver, right?
That's his, yeah, it says UTI. So it doesn't come out yellow, it comes out gray.
Yeah. By the way, Centrum silver,
No
if you'd like
nutrients.
to sponsor this program, we're open to that idea.
It's okay.
He proposed a law to beat big pharma. You talked about insulin. Do we want to talk about diabetes and how that might relate to that, or not?
Diabetes.
Isn't diabetes coming up?
That was another Trump one, right? One of the first things he did with his executive orders is he rescinded Trump's cap on insulin, and then he just added it back, and then like did a victory lap, and that's the preposterousness of this whole thing. But at the same time that we have this insulin problem, he's like his main point at the Super Bowl, and one of the points tonight was that we need to eat more Oreos, and he's going to make sure that they're not cutting the Oreos out of our cookies.
Yeah, we got to get back to you, Lou, a little bit here, because there was a break about the time that he was talking about the insulin drugs, and they panned the camera over to Bernie, and you're kind of a Bernie bro from back in the day. So how did you feel about the fact that Bernie was doing a lot of grab ass, glad handing kind of bullshit when everybody was talking around, mask off, rubbing up next to everybody, but as soon as Biden started talking about insulin, he put his mask on. What is going on with Bernie there?
I don't know. Bernie is, he still says good things, but to me, I think he did the ultimate betrayal. He did something that cannot be forgiven by me. So whenever I look at him, I just think very poorly of him. He had the perfect opportunity to do something that we all need, and that's someone that had a lot of people and someone that could have started a third party, an actual third party. And he chose not to. He chose to endorse Hillary Clinton. And I think that's where, I didn't mind being called a Bernie bro, but there is a limit to my involvement with Bernie.
Well, it was interesting because immediately after that, then he started talking about how he intends to crack down on landlords, raising the rent, which I know that kind of flies pretty well in some of your lefty circles. So how did that make you feel, Lou? Are you confident about that? I mean, look, he's gonna be, applying more federal funding for more housing units. I mean, I'm not sure if he means shipping containers or what. But as was pointed out, really the kickbacks are going straight to BlackRock.
He's gonna
buy Section 8 housing that is still like nasty.
I think there's a provision in there for tents, though.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But are they going to build houses for troops? No.
Of course not.
You don't build houses for walking corpses.
No, we're all about to die
that
anyway.
Wouldn't be good. Yeah, but then he moved into the education system. He talked about accessing preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds and how important that is for your children to have state-sponsored nannies because of broken homes and children not having access to enough words when they're children. And look, I can agree. There's a lot of problems with parenting in this country. There's a lot of piece of shit parents running around out there who don't take care of their children. So do better, America. But I'm not sure that more state-sponsored education is really what we want, or is it?
At this point, no. I'm all for even a network of homeschooling options. Like, I think it's ridiculous to keep kids in school at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on that, and I might have a bit of an unpopular opinion here, right? But coming from a home where there was severe neglect and abuse, the only way that it ever got attention was in the public school system. When you're at home and that shit's happening to you, no one fucking knows, right? And when you're forced to go into that prison system of the school, people see it, and then it gets reported. And there is an ample amount of that crap happening to way too many kids in this country. So I'm a bit split on that.
The problem is
divide on that a bit.
The problem is you talk about who it gets reported to. It gets reported to corrupt CPS authorities who then traffic the children through the system as they're fucking raped through different foster homes, and they perpetuate the cycle of abuse. I mean, we have a really fucked up problem here. And if you want to talk about where it started, I was joking earlier and talking about how marijuana is probably the biggest problem for this country as it came in during the 60s. They did all these things. They brought, public education was in its heyday. They started doing all this commie propaganda in the fucking schools. And then you look at where we are 70 years later, from the end of World War II, and we're like really fucked. We're really fucked. Societally, we're fucked. This is why you have a generation of parents that are completely useless. We're a long ways away from the greatest generation, fam.
And nothing to look forward to either.
Yeah.
Dang,
Well,
black kill me harder, daddy.
Minimum tax. Raise the corporate minimum tax and pay for all of our wants and needs. He said a 25% tax will raise $500 billion over 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Over 10 years, it's nothing for the budget.
Yeah.
And most of what he talked about, like he said all these things they're going to do, the POTUS doesn't have the power to do any of the majority of what he was talking about. And then he talked about all the congressional bills he signed and took victory laps for that. Again, not anything that he did. It was just a giant nothing burger of talking points that people wanted to hear about. And it goes back to what you and Travis were saying, Sean. This is the issue. Like, yeah, preschool would be great for kids. We understand that. But 20 years ago, it would have been great. Now they're going to use that as a filtering mechanism to figure out which kids they need to trans and which kids they need to take away from their parents so that they can indoctrinate them. Right. Like that's what it would be now.
Yeah.
Another brick in the wall.
It's okay. Representative Troy
Nell. Watched it, that's for sure.
What's that, Lou?
I said I feel dumber for having watched that whole thing.
Have you smoked any weed since?
Yeah, I was wondering if it was that or the actual State of the Union. But
it's kind of hard to sort out. I'm not sure that we can really apply causation at this point. But I would lean towards the State of the Union probably making you dumber. I mean, I think
you're not getting ACTJ disability years, so you need to chill.
Yeah.
Right.
You've been denied.
I mean, the virtue signaling was pretty good, whether you talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, trying to go up to Biden with her Laken Riley pin, which he then showed later on. So that was pretty good. But then you also had Troy Nell's representative from Texas had his Never Surrender shirt on and like his shirt unbuttoned, and he's showing off his T-shirt during at some point when they panned over. So really good virtue signaling from the Republicans there. And then, of course, Biden brought up border security and how he has a bill ready to sign, and they just keep blocking it. They won't let him protect the border. Team,
is that the same bill that has like all of the funding for the Ukraine war in it?
Yeah.
They should just hire. They had that guy with the nice green tie from Ukraine representing right next to Jill. They should just hire them to also protect the border. I mean, we're paying them a lot of money. Just ship a few of it. I mean, they're already winning against Russia. They can protect the border.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was something that we talked about because, the State Department issued a warning to all Americans in Moscow, and I haven't checked in on that either to see how bad it is, if there's been any attacks by extremists. But we kind of determined that the extremists they're talking about are actually, some of the neo-Nazi groups that were trained by CIA since 1946. Is that basically where we're at on that? Can we get them to protect our border? Can we just get the neo-Nazis to protect our border too? Do you think they'd be happy doing that?
Oh man,
they're protecting all the other borders and attacking our border.
Look, modern problems require modern solutions here.
That's what I'm saying.
We already have all of the in vitro babies where you get to select them. I'm pretty sure that came out of the Nazi regime at some point. So
there's a lot of weird stuff going on, Sean. And now you have the left calling Hispanics white supremacists, right? And then you have like the weird thing where there was the people with the MS-13 affiliation who were like neo-Nazis too. So like there's a ton of problems that could be solved if we just group some of this shit together, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if they can just process. Go ahead, Joey. Sorry.
I want to say when I was living in Texas, I do want to say there are quite a few Hispanic people that are white supremacists, and I always find that very strange. But I'm like, I mean, I'm white, so rock it. Cool.
I think it might be one of those kind of like floating things. It was like the guy, and I can't remember his name. He was actually a Jewish guy, and he was the head of Aryan Brotherhood in the prison system in Texas. So, life gets pretty weird sometimes. But the other thing, I mean, he brought up that, he talked about $8,000 to these coyotes to cross the border, and how really what they need to do is they need more of these immigration specialists, to let these people seek asylum so that they can process them quicker. And he seemed to think that would help them kick people out of the country quicker than, what was he talking about, 6 years? So they can't kick them out for 6 years because they just don't have enough people to process them.
It sounded like he was advertising for people to come across the border illegally.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like, between the RNCs, like the way they talk about it, and this right here. It just constantly seems like they're just keep advertising. Just come. There's nothing. There's no border. There's nothing going on, and there's tons of jobs.
Yeah, and it's racist if you can't vote. So we're gonna let you vote.
I'll try to give it my best. These they're paying $8,000 to come across the border, and we can't send them home for 6 years, so they're just here. I don't know how they do it, but I hired more judges so that we can get them out in 6 months.
Is that your Joe Biden right there?
I don't know. Yeah, it was.
I
mean, I gotta say, you kind of sounded kind
better.
of like a Civil War reenactor.
Joe Biden.
He is
Joe Biden.
that old.
It was Robert E. Lee.
He refuses to separate families. He said he will not ban people from entering the country because of their faith. Because of their faith. So apparently they've got no problem with faith unless you're Catholic or something, right?
I think the Jews are getting hit pretty hard these days.
Yeah, but either way, send him the border bill now. He spoke about
a spending bill, like an actual bill, like he has a signed away on the receipts or something. Like, what do you think he knows what he's talking about?
Probably
I think
not,
it's another
which is why
Ukraine bill.
Yeah, well, that'll be tied in.
Everything he sent forward has a funding for Ukraine in it. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And back to the Civil War days, he went back to talking about Selma, Alabama, and everything that was done there. He talked about the dark forces of the Ku Klux Klan. But it seems like he would know well about those dark forces with his buddy Robert Byrd or where are we at? Yeah.
Well, it's like I found it funny that he knew that the name of the bridge was named after the Imperial Grand Dragon and all that, and I was like,
yeah,
nobody needed to know that. Nobody cared to know that, but you knew that. Why did you know that, Joe?
I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty esoteric history, I would imagine, at some point. People that get into the studies of the imperial lineage of grand dragons and whatever the fuck else. But 59 years later, forces are taking us back in time with unlimited dark money to subvert the elections, which, I mean, in principle, I've got to say, I agree. I think we've seen a lot of unlimited dark money from George Soros subverting our elections,
and
but
others
his
around
solutions seemed lacking.
Yeah, it's nice of him to just admit it out loud.
Mail-in ballots instead of like voter ID.
Yeah,
or getting rid of super PACs. The dark money's the problem. The solution is for you to shut the fuck up.
Yeah. It's like when you were asking earlier, Lou, about why are they doing this or how do they make the inflation numbers work? And I just told you because shut the fuck up. It's definitely like that. He then went on to talk about something about lessening marijuana laws, obviously, unless you're a January 6th probationer and you can't smoke marijuana at all at the risk of going back to federal prison. And then ending the scourge against women in America as well.
We got to let them smoke the doobie. It goes good at night. It lets you go to sleep.
I've seen, and it also helps the commie shit influence your brain. We watched it all in Reefer Madness. We know what happens.
Yeah, I think they may have reversed on that.
Yeah, I mean, we look at you every week, Lou, so we can see the effect.
I know, it's like my thing. Is it cumulative or is it just spontaneous? Is it?
Yeah, the other key issue. Go ahead.
He spent some time banging the war drum on the women's rights thing again, right? So like he's really, really reaching into that pool or that voter base because that's what came out, and in kind of unified in that party hardcore, right? Right now you got the issues out in Gaza and Israel that's dividing that party, right? But if he can focus on woman, that's the uniting front for his party, and that's what's going to draw voters out for him, is talking about women. And so first it was reproductive rights, now it's we need to end the scourge of domestic violence, right? I don't know. My history as a police officer, 80 to 90% of the time that we showed up on a call on a domestic, it was the women that started the fight. It was the women that were first to go physical, and it was the women that first drew blood on motherfuckers. So a lot of times they were the ones that were actually going to jail until they complained about it and got the laws changed again.
Well, and that's probably why he has the vice president, Kamala Harris, leading the charge after what happened in Uvalde to beat the National Rifle Association and ban assault weapons and high capacity background checks.
I think that just made gun money go cross.
I gotta jump in. This is my moment as a mathematician, as a former professor.
Math it up, baby.
On average, like 20 to 50 people die in this country every year from assault rifles. All rifles together, it's between 200 to 400 people total out of 300 million people. It's such a negligible number that you may as well call it zero statistically, right? That's rifle deaths and even including assault rifle deaths. The fact that these people talk about it at all shows you that it has nothing to do with them being concerned about a real problem, and that they're drumming up them wanting to disarm people.
It's like the IVF thing.
Yeah, it's not a real issue. They're going to talk about assault rifles even though they're not killing people, and that's what they want to ban because that's what would matter if people needed it for self-defense.
Yeah, and I don't know where that plays into a pepper rifles, but now we talked Gaza and even more into the numbers. 1,200 innocent Jews were slaughtered. Talked about the need to do something about that. Of course, Speaker Mikey Johnson loved it. Everybody got up and cheered for that. Then he went on to mention the 30,000 killed Palestinians. And so the solution to that is to build a port. He didn't say anything about the canal that will come after everyone's dead, but the U.S. military will lead the charge without U.S. boots on the ground. The U.S. military will lead the charge without U.S. boots on the ground. Can someone explain to me how that works?
No, because he later said that they will be on the ground. Then he later on said they will be on the ground, make no mistake.
So basically, the humanitarian mission is a military op to enforce the two-state solution, but it's really a one-state solution. Is that where we're at, Lou?
I don't know, because I was actually just in my head thinking about double speak. Are they openly double speaking? Is with your question, are they openly double speaking, or is he just
It seems pretty openly. It seems like open double speak. I mean, look, I can't square that one leading the charge without boots on the ground, but there will be boots on the ground.
It seems like
there's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
Maybe it's going to be flip flops on the ground because it is going to be up here.
Chanclas on the ground.
Maybe it's Crocs on the ground, right? Because maybe it's a vernacular issue here, and they're just not going to be wearing boots.
Can't
right.
afford them.
Well, what the MSM has perfected here is he can say one thing, then say the other thing. And so what they'll quote is they'll be like, no, bro, we fact checked this. He said there will not be boots on the ground.
That's what I was saying. It's enough
if you
to have
say everything. Yeah, if you say everything in one speech, then you've always got something to lean on. You're always right that way. It's beautiful.
And then the other side that's also part of the fucking Mockingbird media is out there saying, he said we're going to put boots on the ground. He said it. They're right too,
Yeah, you fool. We've never been at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with Eurasia.
Wait a minute. I thought we were at war with Oceania.
I think we're at war with
that sounds like some real gavel banging right there.
That is some gavel banging, which then it went right into, he reminded everybody that he was vice president to the first black president and now president to the first women vice president. That's a quote, president to the first women vice president. So that's pretty amazing accomplishment. But that's pretty much where he wrapped it out. Then he talked about, you know, how we have a future as a country. It was all quite inspiring, as long as we can just do something about these fucking MAGA extremist domestic terrorist pieces of shit who.
And fentanyl. He did mention fentanyl, right?
What did he say about fentanyl? I don't know. I kind of missed that.
Yeah.
Does anybody else remember fentanyl?
He said he was going to make pass laws to make it more illegal. And again, as POTUS, he can't do that. So it's not really clear what he's talking about. I mean, he could try to do it, and he's done a lot of illegal things as POTUS with his executive orders. So, you know, maybe he will. But it seems like, you know, shutting down the border would be the solution for that one, instead of just, you know, punishing users.
Yeah, but there's so many possibilities.
So as we look back and we analyze this shit show dumpster fire that we just observed, that we continue to observe on an everyday basis, I think, you know, we're going to try, maybe. Gosh, such a sarcastic night, but you know, what are some solutions right now, given the Congress that we have, given the lack of faith in the institutions that's rampant across America? We don't trust anybody. We don't trust any of the information coming out of the government. When we look around at our leadership, you know, how do we start to rebuild trust legitimately? How do we start to fix this shit show? Anybody got ideas, or are we just all out of them?
I really think it's reaching across, like, you know, stop picking sides and like start talking to people that you wouldn't normally, you know, think you would agree with. I think it's time to kind of blow your mind on a personal level.
I mean, do you think, Lou, that, you know, I know we've talked about this, the division being planned. So I think that that's something that we've got to do, right? I mean, combat rev. I mean, how do we get past some of this division? Obviously, everybody hates each other right now. It's really bizarre just how divided we are. You can't even, you know, go on any forum online and mention anything about politics without immediately getting someone coming on there and telling you you're a piece of shit human being. And that kind of goes for all sides. I mean, we're just primed for explosion right now. Any thoughts on how to prevent that and actually unify the country? I mean, I've often said that Biden should have probably pardoned all the J6ers, and that would have been a nice step, but that'll never happen. So any ideas, considering where we're at?
I got to push that narrative.
Yeah, and I mean, it was too easy of a solution that should have been done over the last 8-9 years. But nobody wanted to give a shit because they were too busy being a Republic blood or a Democrat. Right? Everybody was too tribalized and just fucking zealots, right? Nobody was willing to sit across the table and say, hey, I have a differing opinion, but we can still be friends, right? It's too poisoned in everybody's blood that I'm almost fearful that the only solution is fucking war.
Well, as a lefty here,
I fear that. I fear that. I have been trying in every circle in my life to encourage people to just get along, hear each other out, listen to what each other's problems are. Because when you do that, when you sit down and you truly listen to what each other's problems are, you find out that the problems are the fucking same. And you both want a reasonable solution. You just look at a different avenue to get there. But nobody wants to listen to each other. They just want to tell each other to shut the fuck up because they have the only right opinion.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. Is like, as a lefty, it's like you talk to some left, it's like they think the Republicans are eating babies, and you know, they think they want murder to be legal. And then you talk to rights, and they think that, you know, they also think crazy shit about them. It's just like not the further could be, you know, it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, we all believe in so much, like we're like 90% there, and like you just said, it's just how can we get the rest of it there to just make it all work for all of us.
People I think have to shut off the propaganda IV. Right? Like, everybody's got a fucking IV just tapped right into their fucking neck that's just feeding them so much poison and so much bullshit that it's the only thing they fucking believe. They will not believe anything unless it came from Talking Head A or Talking Head B. If it's not Whoopi Goldberg or Tucker Carlson, they don't give a shit. They don't care what facts you have or what opinions you might have or what history you might have or what expertise you might have. Like nothing matters unless it came from the celebrity of their choice that told them some believed perceived fact. And until motherfuckers can just pull that IV out of themselves and just think critically for themselves and have some fucking empathy and reach across and truly reach each other's heart, we're fucked.
Any thoughts on how to pull that IV, Gun Bunny?
Move to a different area. That's what I ended up doing, right? Like I was a little lefty there for a while. Even though I'd lived in Texas before, I didn't really listen to a lot of the politics about Republicans because I always felt like they're just fucking us money-wise. But then when I moved back to Texas and started to have open conversations with people, yeah, I went back to being moderate, and now I'm a little bit more right. But definitely, like allowing yourself to admit your wrongs, right, and have a grace and speak to people about their real everyday fucking problems, like not perceived bullshit, not shit you see on the news or whatever here, but like real life shit. Having that conversation.
Lou, why don't you kind of proceed to give us a little bit more leftist drivel?
I was going to just rip into the left.
Well, whatever you got to do, give us your best business. You've actually got a little more time than usual. We're not as cramped. We got through that pretty good tonight. So,
nice.
You know, kind of expound upon some of your analysis of the situation.
Well, I'll say this. It's dawning on me that I don't think the libs or the left like democracy and justice. They only like it when it works for them. Whenever it doesn't work for them, it's like, oh, it must have been this, it must have been that. And it's like, you know, when I was a lefty in the 2000s and all that stuff, the problem was we couldn't convince the Republicans that the pharmaceutical companies and the military industrial complex and all of this other shit was all bad news. And now they're all on board with that shit. And the left are their biggest cheerleaders. And to me, it's just astonishing that they're letting this tribal thing to not even let them understand that they won. They won. All they have to do is just now reap the rewards by communicating a solution.
Lou, any plans to what you intend to talk about on Fedcast coming up on Saturday with Harrison Schultz?
Well, I do know that Jerome Powell was in front of the congressional, people. So I'm sure that will be on tap.
Well, I'm going to say I would really, really like it if you guys could dig into some of those connections between BlackRock and this port in Israel and everything else, whatever you can do to bridge that gap to let people understand just how destructive the Fed really is. So for all you out there, do check out Fedcast. Lou produces that up. They do a nice job with Harrison Schultz. They go through all the issues of monetary import from a very educated level, and that's always appreciated. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Lou?
Well, no, actually, I did some producing also for this new show that Harrison.
Can you kill his camera already? He's done. Manager, get him out of here. All right, thank you. Thor, we had a conversation earlier today, and we rotated around a lot of different things. I know that we felt like we came away with some good thoughts. We definitely spoke about education and some of these problems, but I think something that I actually wanted you to kind of even more elaborate on is this inability for Americans to recognize the trouble we're actually in.
Yeah, well, that's the issue. I mean, Joe got to it partially with talking about the chip manufacturing in Taiwan. You can say what you want, but us putting boots on the ground in Taiwan is a strong signal to China. We're facing a serious existential threat. And in that sense, Biden was correct. He was inverted the truth on it. Americans are less resilient. They're less educated. They're in every capacity. They're less patriotic, right? What we need more resilient people. We need people going to community groups. I'll echo what was said earlier. You need to go to church. You need to go to the Boy Scouts. You need to go to your men's group or women's group. And you need to meet people on the ground and talk with them and interact with them, because the threats we're facing with BRICS, with especially with China, with Russia, like we're on the doomsday clock farther than we've ever been, and we're at a real point too existential. In the 50s, when we were there, the American people wouldn't have tolerated an attack on Europe or ourselves. I think most Americans at this point would just accept Russia using a tech nuke against Ukraine and not really care about it. And so we need to fix that existential issue by interacting with people locally. And then we need to start waking up globally, because there are a lot of countries in the world, a lot of powerful players, a lot of people who are middling people like Turkey, Iran, who are now superpowers. And we, this is not 1990, it's not 1950. The Americans need to wake up, and they need to start connecting with each other.
Well said. I think when we look back at all this, there's a lot of things that each one of us can do, and you're damned right. I'm going to plug a little bit here. So if you could go to 1776returns.com, the easiest way to support our style of renegade journalism is to go to 1776returns.com, click on the button to stand with us. And if you'd like to support us, it's greatly appreciated. It does help us keep the lights on here. It's a lot to take in, and our country is in trouble. We do have a lot of problems here domestically that we need to solve if we ever want to address the things that are going on geopolitically and abroad. So we've got to get our own house in order, and that means we've got to come back together at some point in some way. And honestly, we haven't really endorsed anybody. We jokingly endorsed Nikki Haley, but I think anybody who knows us knows that wasn't true. And I don't know who we need as president for sure. I know there's options out there still. They haven't taken anyone off the ballot. But one thing I think we do know at this point, Joe has got to go. Good night, everybody.